Are we having fun at this quarter capacity Comic-Con? I'm sorry, it's not Comic-Con, it's SiliCon with Adam's Head. Hope everybody's having a good time. Everybody's got to wear masks here, but I'm like 50 feet away from the nearest person. Well, no, more like 20, so I get to not wear my mask briefly. Ooh, sign language interpreter. Oh, yay! Hooray for the sign language interpreter. My favorite ancient era is the Australopithecine. I found that the Neolithic man... How you doing there, interpreter? All right. Well, I know. So today we're going to be talking about just the future with NASA space tech. Sorry for stumbling over that. Today we're going to be talking to genuinely smart and brilliant people, not just ones who pretend to be. And we're talking about what it'll take to land missions on another planet, make it back alive, from new robots designed to beat extreme challenges of living on the moon or Mars, to technologies for landing spacecraft on distant worlds. And we're going to be talking to a number of panelists who will be introducing themselves. So I'm going to toss it over to them. They're going to tell you how awesome they are, and then they're just going to start talking. And then at the end, we're going to have questions from the audience. So you can see there's some microphones in the aisles. So as we get to about 10 minutes from the end of the show, you guys can line up behind the microphones, and I will capriciously decide who gets to ask questions. All right, so let's send it over to the panelists.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us and hanging out with us this afternoon. We are joining you all from NASA right in your backyard in Silicon Valley in Mountain View, California, but joining you all virtually this year. We are so excited to participate, and we are excited to also share some of the awesome technologies that help further NASA's missions. I'll start first by introducing myself. My name is Tiffany Blake. I work along the side of these awesome people in the Office of Communications, actually. And I have the honor of working with these cool folks here on this panel and others across our center to help them tell their story in avenues like this here and also across other platforms online. So very happy and excited to be here and be the moderator for this panel today. And how about we just jump right in with introductions here from our panelists. Let's start with Jonathan.
Okay, all right, let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. That way you guys have something to take a look at. So, hi everybody, my name is Jonathan Morgan. I'm an aerospace engineer at NASA Ames Research Center. So I work in the thermal protection materials branch.
Jonathan froze.
Projects and programs to help thermal protection systems. Hopefully you can see that. So we primarily use the ArcJet complex here at the NASA Ames Research Center to expose these systems, these thermal protection systems, to similar heat and pressure that would be experienced during atmospheric entry when a vehicle enters a new planet's atmosphere. So what you're seeing on the right-hand side is a cool model called the Adept Spiderweave aeroshell that we just recently tested, and we had a nice little feature on the NASA Ames Instagram, so you guys can go check that out if you wish. I was also told to give a little bit of a preview of some of the favorite superheroes, since that's relevant here. And my favorite superhero is the Flash. Running super fast is pretty cool, so what's not to like there? It's also very helpful when you're forgetful like me and almost literally need to run back to home for something. I think also being able to run
You'll have to forgive
fast
him.
and slow down time, relativistically, would give me a chance to catch up on those chores. So one thing that's really cool here is that this NASA-derived technology that makes up the Flash suit is something similar to what we test on the Adept aeroshell. So quite literally, testing material like this will help us make the suit for the Flash a reality. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing now.
Nice, Jonathan. I did not know that tie at all. That was cool. Next, how about Christine?
Hi, everybody. Well, my name is Christine. I use she, her pronouns, and I've worked on a lot of things at NASA. That's one of the nice things about NASA. Hopefully you all can see my screen here. But what I'm currently working on is things that are going to help us make sort of the next generation of space infrastructure. And what I mean by that is when we are going back to the moon in Artemis, we want to make sort of a sustainable presence. We want to make things that are big, and to do that, we're going to need help actually doing this construction, this assembly from robots, because working in construction on Earth is dangerous, but construction on other planets or in space is really dangerous. So I'm working on what's called, it's a project with a really long name, but I generally talk about it as real-life Minecraft in space. And that we're trying to build robots that can put together building block, really lightweight materials to make high performance structures for the moon or sort of doing anything in space. And so the idea is we want to build much larger than we have in the past. And we think that this sort of technology and thinking about how to make scalable technologies for that is really important. So, and as for my favorite superhero, there's no like cool tie to my technology, but I like Black Panther just because trying to make a better, more just world is, I think, a good goal. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Christine. How about Nick? I almost called you Dr. Nick.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. All right, there you go. Actually, I'm a little disappointed I'm not there in person. Actually, I'm really disappointed, in large part because, that's the only thing I got out of my PhD, really, was the opportunity to make that joke. And this is the audience for it. And now I don't get that. But it's okay. In lieu, I'll tell you a little bit about the research I do, some of the things I've done in the past. And I go by he, him pronouns. So we've got, I actually used to work with Christine. We used some different sort of technology, or we used the same technology with a different application for aerospace, and that's what you're seeing down at the bottom here. Basically, those structures that Christine is building up in space are actually really light, packed really small, and are really good for applications that you might want to fly. So that's what we were doing there. It was a really cool project. A lot of this stuff I'm showing here is other work that I've done either with or without NASA, some power electronics, robotics, contact mechanics, and then this sort of flexible aerospace technology. And then at the far left, that's what I'm currently working on. That's what the reference was before. And so I lead a project called Distributed Spacecraft Autonomy. Pause this video again. Where what we're doing is we're trying to respond to the environment without a human in the loop. This is something that will hopefully enable us to collect more information and more detailed information and take advantage of these short-term transient effects, basically opportunistic science. So being able to make a decision on what we want to do when a human's not in the loop. Oh, and my favorite superhero. I loved X-Men growing up, and I got two that are sort of, I'm going to just say both of them, they're both sort of boring and run-of-the-mill and maybe controversial in some way. I love Wolverine and Gambit equally, I know the Gambit one's a little tough pill to swallow for some people there.
Thanks, Nick. And last but not least, Jeremy.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Jeremy Vander Kam. I go by he, him pronouns. And let's see, I'll share my screen as well, give you a sense of what I do with AIM. So I actually work very closely with Jonathan, thermal protection systems. He talked a little bit about testing, and I've tended to be able to go out and do some of the actual work in the field. I joined NASA in 2000, so I've been there a while now. And my favorite thing about working for NASA is really being able to play a part in the idea of humanity learning more about the universe we live in. You know, it's been going on for a long time. Here I got the opportunity to go and map out the exterior of the Apollo 11 crew module at the Smithsonian a few years back, and all sorts of other neat things. I've got a couple more pictures coming up. My favorite superhero is Spider-Man, and that is because depending on the depiction, you know, which actor or which depiction we're talking about, he's never quite exactly sure of himself, and I feel that way sometimes too. But you know, he makes me think, well, even if you're not sure of yourself, you can go off and do amazing things. Let's see, one of the programs I work on is the Orion crew module, part of the Artemis program. You can see it here after one of our flight tests floating out in the ocean. Not only is it a spacecraft, but it's a boat too, apparently. Jonathan and I work on the thermal protection systems for vehicles like this. I've been a big part of Orion since it started, and do the inspections of the crew modules when they come back from space out at sea after we recover them, which is really cool. And then another project that we're working on now is something called Mars Sample Return, which if you've been following the Perseverance rover mission on the surface of Mars, our whole sample return program has already started. And it's a very, very complex program, starting with the Perseverance rover there in the upper left that's collecting samples of the Martian soil, leaving them in little tubes there in the middle on the top to be picked up by another rover mission that'll launch in a few years. That rover packs the tubes into a bowling ball in the nose of a rocket on the surface of Mars, and that rocket launches that bowling ball up into Mars orbit. You can get a sense of what the little, I keep calling it a bowling ball, little sample canister there in the lower left looks like. That goes around Mars and Mars orbit. It gets picked up by another spacecraft, rendezvous with the sample canister, packs it up into an Earth return vehicle, flies it back to Earth, and then we bring the samples back to Earth in an Earth entry vehicle, we call it. And the heat shield for that Earth entry vehicle is what I'm working on at Ames with Jonathan. There we go.
Cool. I mean, I work with these guys, and yet every time I hear about their work, I'm always kind of just like enamored, like at the great work that they're able to do. So how about we jump into some questions? First one, and I think Jeremy kind of answered this a little bit with his introduction. So let's go to Dr. Nick here and ask, how is your technology advancing NASA's exploration goals?
Yeah, so I think the big thing you want to think about is this: we get deeper and deeper into space. The sort of opportunities we have to have the scientists or the engineers back on Earth sort of interact and make decisions on what they want to observe, that decreases. So you really need to start being able to do that on board the spacecraft or the robot. And so we already do this to some degree. But one of the real big promises as we move into future exploration is having multiple spacecraft interacting with each other. That gives you simultaneous data point collection. You can see a lot more when you're doing that, and it really helps with exploration. So that's what we're focused on, is saying, okay, well now let's make this onboard decision making distributed across multiple aspects. So fundamentally, what we're doing is we're making our spacecraft work as a team. Without the person included.
Christine, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I feel the same way. So I've worked with Nick, and I'm always just kind of like everything kind of like, oh, really? That's what you're doing? Oh, cool. Everyone here does such cool work. So our technology is also focused on sort of moving to the next generation of exploration. And so something that's always a constraint is we want to build, big ships, nuclear propulsion ships, to go get people to Mars or even further. But you can't just fit all of that into one rocket. And so you're left with fundamentally this challenge of you have to put multiple things in space and then you have to assemble them. And we've done that before with the ISS, but it took a really long time and it was really hard. It's kind of cool because we see the end product, but unless you've been following it for the last 20, 25 years, you don't see all like how difficult that engineering problem was. And so NASA's been working for a long time on how do we get robots to actually sort of do this scalable construction. And it's linked actually with what Nick was talking about because, you know, again, as you move further, you can't have a human operator there sort of with your little joystick doing the control of the robot because the lag time is just too much. We don't have the data that we need to do it. And so you need to have these robotic systems making their own decisions. And that's something, you know, that I think we have an idea that we're getting really good at here on Earth, but it's actually much harder in space because of just your hardware constraints, your software constraints. You know, you can't just put a processor from your cell phone or, you know, your cool gaming computer that you just bought. You can't launch that into space. It actually won't work that well. So meeting those challenges and really bringing the autonomy to these construction projects or these exploration projects is a huge part of what we're enabling.
Space is a rough environment.
Super rough.
Okay, next question, and you all feel free to like chime in if I don't, you know, pick on you or something like that. If you have something to add, feel free to just jump right on in. You know, these technologies are literally, you know, in some aspects kind of just way out there, right? And ambitious, right? Because like you guys are saying, space is hard. It takes a lot of research and imagination to kind of come up with, you know, the things that we need, the projects that we need to, in order to be successful. And so like what has inspired your project? I don't know who to pick on. Maybe Jeremy.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of inspiration, I know I've been a fan of anything that gets off the ground and flies since I was a small child, and I've always really liked the idea of going, or of humanity really, learning about the solar system and the universe in a real tangible way, right? So one of the things I really I find inspiring with working with Jonathan on the thermal protection systems is that if you think about all the locations in the solar system that one could send a robot or send people, the larger those places are, they're going to have an atmosphere that you need to get through. They're going to have you know, all the challenges that come with reentry, and you need a heat shield system to be able to do that, right? To put a Perseverance rover on Mars, to go and drop a lander on the Titan moon, any of those things. And in particular, the idea, like with Mars sample return or some of the other concepts for returning pieces of the solar system back to Earth to study, that is really, I think, inspiring. The idea that, you know, the human race can go and reach out and grab a little bit of another celestial body and bring it back safely to Earth and then check it out and study it right here in our own labs is, I don't know, that's something that gets me out of bed every day.
Jonathan, what about you?
Well, it looks like I'm having some internet connectivity issues, but yeah, I just, you know, to kind of echo what Jeremy had already said and add on a little bit more, the ability to bring something back or to bring a little bit of ourselves to a new place, you know, in the solar system and hopefully at some point beyond, is definitely a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And it's, you know, it's funny, you can have these sort of ideas that pop into your head, and they tease away something that you think might work. And one of the excellent things about NASA is that it can operate as a resource and sort of a nurturing agent for these nascent technologies. And I think one example of that is one of the pictures I had showed earlier, which is the ADEPT technology, which is a really neat way of kind of overcoming some of the space constraints that we have. Christine had mentioned earlier that we're having difficulty, you know, getting a bunch of pieces up to a location that we want to go to. So we have to do it in stages to bring more things to further distant locations like Mars or Venus or Titan or something like that. And so one of the things we have to do when we bring that new technology is we have to consider how fast fast we're going and how much we have to slow down. So that adept technology, that kind of umbrella shape that I had showed earlier, is one neat way of overcoming that, because that umbrella, you know, we sort of know what it feels like to have an umbrella open in the wind, and to sort of take that concept and understand that umbrella can stow into a smaller package and then open up and provide greater surface area to slow down with, is not something that, you know, you would think would work. But with this kind of encouragement and testing and sort of adoption of the technology, those kinds of ideas can be brought to the forefront and enable missions to, well,
to be perfectly successful, that's what he was going to say.
Actually, I want to piggyback on something that Jonathan was saying a little bit earlier, which is about the incubation of this technology and sort of NASA's role in that, and sort of as we're looking into these future technologies. I think that's just so critical, and something that I think we all share here is, you know, you invest a lot of time and mental effort, and you have these thoughts and you have these visions of what's going to happen. But the truth is, like, most technology doesn't make its way all the way there, and you need to have an opportunity to sort of try those out and push them and have them be knocked down to sort of put them back together and make something that's going the better direction to achieve this, you know, this larger mission. I think that's like, to me, that's like one of the things, like, that's what makes NASA to me. Like, it's where it all comes together and sort of how it works. And I guess it also dovetails into the inspiration for the project that I work on. For me, it's really all about gaining more knowledge, right? And so it doesn't matter if I'm developing technology or we're sort of expanding our knowledge of the universe. That's really what it's about. And so I get so jazzed about what I work on, because I get to both sort of push our technological knowledge at the same time that if that's successful, we're going to get this sort of windfall of scientific knowledge as a result. And that's just like that new unknown or unexplored sort of capabilities is really where it all is for me.
Awesome. This is a question for everybody, and of course for our SiliCon fans out there. What movie or series do you think your technology could contribute to? I'm curious.
Well, I don't know, could contribute to, because it seems like a lot of the fictional movies and TV series are way beyond anything we're doing. But it's certainly, I'll say it this way. It's certainly, it's entertaining to me to watch, you know, sci-fi movies that involve spacecraft in space, and they're going to another planet, and they're just, you know, perfectly re-entering an atmosphere with no apparent, you know, protection system, just doing it nice and slow and everything like that. And I actually think about it the other way. It's like, that's what we need. How come we don't have that yet? Just, you know, arrive gracefully onto a massive planet with this giant atmosphere and just, you know, kind of pass peacefully through the atmosphere. So I flip that around. I think NASA and you know, real life could learn a little bit inspirationally from what the gift of science fiction is giving us in that regard.
That professional jealousy there.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. It always seems so seamless and so just perfect, those landings.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's part of why I like the series Firefly, because I feel like their entries were always like a little rough, and I'm like, oh, that's a little bit more what I'm used to seeing.
Are you saying it's not like that episode of Voyager where they sat the whole spacecraft down and they're like, oh yeah, it was fine, you know, we've never done it before, but it worked perfectly the first time because we got a great pilot and there's never any problems with that, right?
No spacecraft is ever warm or burned or hot or anything, just seamlessly nice and clean, just
Hey, this is Andy, the moderator on this on the SiliCon side. I just want to point out that Federation ships are made of duranium. Okay, so until you get your little thermal stuff up to duranium standards, don't be throwing shade at the Federation. All right, I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
Whoop, sorry, I could not unmute there. Thinking about NASA's big missions to the moon and Mars, we have found ice on the moon and things like that. But do you think we'll actually find life on Mars?
Well, that's the whole point of going, right? Is to see. I don't know, call it controversial or whatever. Maybe. Right? I think that's the whole thing of it is, that question, do you think we'll find life on this planet or find life in the universe or, that's why we're looking, right? That's why we do the things we do, is to go and answer that question. It'll be unknown until we prove it one way or the other, which I don't know will ever happen, right? At least not in my lifetime. So I enjoy the search of it. I like living in that unknown and not knowing the answer to that.
I think my audio is back. I just want to tag on and say, even if there is not life there now, to know that maybe at some point life did exist there would be just as valuable a finding for us, I think.
I think it's definitely the consistent question that drives us, here at NASA for sure. As we work on multiple projects and different things, I think that's always a consistent question for us. And I always enjoy people asking that question because I think, just like Jeremy said, it's like we have that same question. So we're going to, we're doing the research and we're looking just like, we want to answer that question just like, anyone else. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we should have invited some of our space biology friends from Ames. They probably have a more informed opinion than certainly I do. But I think, one of the things NASA also does is study our own planet. And I think what we've learned again and again is places where we think there could possibly be life here, at least on Earth. There's usually life there, whether it's like the, deep ocean vents or super arid desert area, and it just sort of appears. So I don't know, Jeremy, I have no idea. That's why we're looking, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for at least finding that there's evidence that there was something there.
Yeah, and I agree with that too.
Yeah, so just to throw this out there, you're not likely to get a bunch of hot takes from a bunch of researchers. We're all about answering questions, not giving opinions on them a lot of times. So I'm sorry, everybody. They're not piping hot here.
Nobody asked me, but I can give my opinion.
Let's hear it.
All right.
Yeah.
I think there's no life on Mars, and there never has been. Sorry. As she pointed out, as Christine pointed out, everywhere on Earth where life can possibly exist, even places where we think it can't, it ends up being there. So I believe that if a planet ever evolves life, then that life is going to get everywhere and it's going to survive all the long-term changes that happen to the planet. There was no cataclysmic event on Mars. Mars, it had a thicker atmosphere, it had liquid water, and it slowly changed over literally millions of years. Life can evolve faster than that. So I believe that if there had ever been any life on Mars, there would be life all over Mars, and it would still be present and very easy to detect with our probes. And so far we have found nothing but a completely sterile environment. So yeah, I'm the sci-fi author and I'm supposed to be all, pie in the sky ideals, but realistically, I just don't think that there is or has ever been life on Mars. Still an awesome planet, want people to go.
Pipe and hot take. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, as opposed to Jeremy's, he said this might be controversial, but maybe. That's wow, easy there, Jeremy. Dial it back.
Yeah, but as soon as I said controversial, you listened a little more, see? It's a trick.
There we go.
Pay attention to this non-committal shrug, all right?
I'm sorry.
Talking about exploration, where do you all see space exploration in the next 20 years? Who would you like to see?
Well, sorry, I'll apologize for going first again. I actually am really encouraged personally by what I see right now with space exploration becoming not just the domain of large government entities. I think what we see happening out in industry, whether it be small satellites, whether it be human space flight, robotic probes, and having more places where that can be done, I think bodes really, really well for space exploration on the whole, right? It's much like, it's probably an overly used metaphor, but it's like, when the government started the post office, spawned a whole transportation infrastructure around delivering the mail that now we have, right? And so in a kind of a similar vein, I saw the shrug, Andy. But in a similar vein, I really like I like the more people doing it on their own, right? I think that bodes well for what we're going to see in the future.
Yeah, not just a number of things going on there. There's also the kind of inherent competition that comes from many people trying different things and different ideas. It'll spawn within its own self. It'll kind of feed off of itself and just make every sort of capability that we generate that much better.
I agree with all that, and going a little bit different direction. I really hope we see more Venus science coming in the next 20 years. So I think Mars is cool, but I'm also really interested, I think we have so much to learn from understanding whether Venus was closer to Earth at some point and sort of what happened. And, there's an obvious connection with what, might be going on with our climate right now. Definitely is going on with our climate right now. So I really want to know more about that.
Better get those thermal guys working on it then. Yeah, that's a big issue with Venus.
I'm just saying, floating sky cities in the atmosphere.
Damn right.
Yes.
Yeah, see, there you go. I think it's sort of almost in a similar vein to what Jeremy and Jonathan were talking about, but I think from an Earth conserving perspective, I think the proliferation of these LEO satellite constellations with a lot of low Earth orbit constellations with a lot of different sensing capabilities that are currently going up, you're really going to see a level of fidelity of information extraction about the environment we currently inhabit and how we're interacting with it, and frankly what we're doing with it, as Christine was sort of alluding to, that I think is I know that that's part of space, but that's the space that is so personal to all of us. And I think the space technology that we're deploying currently is really going to change how we understand how we're interacting with our environment, which will, in my opinion, sort of set the groundwork with how we understand how we'll interact with future space environments that go beyond our planet.
I just want to add on one thing to what Dr. Nick was saying. This kind of, what you were saying with the proliferation of these LEO satellites, one thing that is really exciting to see in the past, X many years, at least as long as I've been paying attention, is how easier and easier it is to get involved with the kind of basic science that we want to do on Earth, stuff that's centric to understanding Earth, and how easier and easier it's getting to become involved with launching small basic science experiments aboard CubeSats, for example, and that becoming that barrier to entry sort of dissolving and letting people get involved with it more, which then kind of echoes back to what I was saying earlier with more people doing it, more ideas being generated, more involvement kind of coming around, and you just have this sort of this aura of excitement and understanding around doing science and contributing to the body of knowledge that we have.
If I could also, I think I'm going to double down here on my spaceship Earth love, in that, you know, I know the question's about exploration, and I'm talking about Earth, but I think, you know, we're learning more and more that, you know, 100 years ago, people thought of Earth as just kind of like, it's this sort of infinite open system that we can just use resources. And it's not. Like, we're a very sort of like insulated little world in the middle of a really big universe. And I think as we learn to explore and go try to live in other environments in our solar system, we're learning more and more about how to do that efficiently and manage sort of our spaceships. And I'm hoping that that will sort of lead to a more mentality of how do we understand and be kind to the spaceship that we're all a part of.
That was good. Okay, so we'll ask one more question and then we'll hand it over to Andy. We want to make sure that we get a chance to answer you guys' questions, but there is one question that is pretty consistent that we get when we're talking to the public, and that's, you know, what's your NASA story? How did you begin working at NASA? So maybe the panelists can each share their career path with the audience. Jonathan, you go first. You're on my
I'm just going to speak first. Okay, well, I'm assuming the internet connection is a little bit better now.
Did you stop the porn download?
I tried. This is a government piece of equipment, so I have to be careful about that, but yeah, I tried. So for me, it's always like sacrilege to say this, but I did not always want to work at NASA. That was something that I kind of came to see as an opportunity and sort of aligned with personal views. But I wanted to be a race car driver when I grew up. When I was very, very little, I was like, I just want to go fast. And then I got into college and I started to see some of the other sort of design and engineering problems that were existing. And I became interested in helicopters. And then when I got finished with college, I saw that there were other things that went farther and faster, and I was like, oh, well, what are they doing? So I applied and did some internships and eventually landed a job after grad school studying some radiation code that we have here at NASA Ames to kind of understand well, the radiative emission from shock layer that surrounds really, really fast spacecraft as they go into an atmosphere. And that just sealed the deal. Capturing that sort of intense phenomena that occurs in and around a vehicle going really, really fast. You know, I'm not going to be a race car driver, but at least I can kind of witness and be involved with some of the fastest man-made objects that we have.
So I see where the flash came from then.
Yeah, I just want to go fast.
Nick, you're up. Oh no, we can't hear you. Oh.
Didn't have the mission. NASA as a primary sort of like envisioned goal early in life. I sort of like fell into it. I guess I'll try to make the story short, but essentially when I went to grad school, I tried to apply to a mission internship my first summer, and I didn't get a single interview. And then the next summer, I spent the summer on my girlfriend's couch, and the next year I went back to my professor and was like, hey, I can't do that again. And he introduced me to somebody from NASA, and that's basically how my career started. Is I convinced them to give me an internship, and then I continued working with them for the rest of my PhD, and then I graduated, and they're like, hey, you want to come finish up that project that you were working on? I was like, sure, let's do that. And then I stayed. So that's about it.
So you all worked for NASA because you had like nowhere else to go. That's basically what I'm getting, is you guys are like, I guess I'll go work for NASA.
was a tough decision. Yeah, it was just.
The couch is a really attractive kind of career path, honestly.
Nick, I've never heard you tell that story.
Oh, really? So a little context for the audience. Christine was working on that project when I started working on it, and how I got there. That's how we met. And so, like, how many years was us working together on that? Like 4, maybe?
Many.
That makes it sound like it was too many.
We worked really
She
hard.
didn't give me the boot. She was like, Nick, you can leave now.
No, I didn't. Come back, Nick.
Off to the virtual couch.
Jeremy, I see
You're
you're
way out there. No, that's not,
Yeah, I'll go
that's not
next.
true at all.
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, so I mentioned that I've been into things that fly for a long time. That happened in preschool, actually. I got to go, it was, field trip to an Air Force base back when they still brought preschoolers to Air Force bases. I got to sit in the cockpit of an A4 Skyhawk, and I was hooked on things that fly ever since then. And I couldn't fly because my eyes weren't good enough, and this was back in the day, So then I just got into studying things that fly, and I went that direction, kind of the boring story. Like, that was the direction I was going to go. So went into aerospace engineering, did a master's thesis through NASA Ames, ended up at Ames, and was just whoop all the way through.
Great.
What's not being mentioned is
Preschooler, Jeremy.
I just want to, preface that all of this, we probably all want to be astronauts. We're not saying it, but I think we all want to be astronauts.
Yeah, I think we all, yeah.
No. So
Hot take, here it comes.
here we go.
Controversial.
Here we go. Yeah. I do not want to be an astronaut because the more I learn about space, it is a rough ship Earth. There's trees, there's birds. I love birds. That's how I got into it. So my story is more, I was always interested in things that fly, and then I got into sort of aviation, and I originally was going to do sort of the Air Force direction, but I also sort of medicaled out of that. But I always had this interest in studying things that flew, but I had the problem of being interested in way too many things. And so I took an internship at NASA Ames between my junior year and senior year in college, just because I wanted to, NASA's cool. They do things that fly. I wanted to see what that was all about. And I just loved it. I loved the culture of NASA because it's extremely collaborative. And I knew that I wanted to be in a situation where I got to do cool technical things, got to try to do science, but in a really mission-focused, sort of we're all pulling towards the same direction sort of culture. So I came to NASA Ames and I did helicopters for a while, and I just kind of kept following the next cool thing that I saw. And at NASA, the really awesome thing is you get into an internship, and I went to grad school. Chose my grad school so I could be close to NASA Ames and continue to work with the researchers there. And there's no shortage of really awesome things to do at NASA. So I just kind of kept trying to get involved in the next cool thing that I saw.
Nice. Well, thanks you guys for sharing your NASA story. The good and the bad, I guess. Want to hand it over to Andy to answer some audience questions.
Hello. Well, I think I'm just going to select the audience members. I think we'll let the panel answer the questions. Yeah, so I love your NASA stories. That's fantastic. I love that. It's so the judge told me I can either go to jail or work for NASA, right?